The first pro is definitely going to be this car's handling dynamics. This car actually does a great job just cruising at the speed limit. That's totally fine, and it's actually fun in its own way to drive it at the speed limit. So again, daily driving is certainly a key factor that they worked on here, but trust me, you're going to want to drive this car very hard. Not because it kind of eggs you on or anything, but when you drive it more and more, when you live with it, you realize just how damn capable this car is. Okay, it's got the 4Motion all-wheel drive as standard here with a sport differential in the back. And you notice just how much you can just keep pushing this car because it's very hard to reach this vehicle's limits out on the public roads. That's how good this thing sticks to the road. It's always got a neutral handling demeanor to it. It doesn't feel like it's a front-wheel drive car or a rear-wheel drive car. It just feels neutral, and it really is just like a privilege to be able to drive such a highly capable car as your daily driver, right? So that's the first pro. The other pro is going to be with the drivetrain, okay, with the engine and this transmission. In this case, I was testing the 6-speed manual transmission, but you can also get a dual clutch automatic if you so choose. And I don't blame you for going with the dual clutch because, well, this thing is quick, all right? More so than what the numbers would suggest. They rate 0 to 60 to be around 4.7 seconds according to VW, but some sources have tested this thing to be as low as 3.9 seconds with the dual clutch. That's an insane number. I mean, they call these things a hot hatch for a reason, that's for sure. But when you drive this 4-cylinder turbo doesn't feel like every other generic 4-cylinder turbo. They actually did a great job tuning this to feel quick off the line, because every turbocharged engine feels quick off the line. That's not an issue. But out in the highway speeds, the top end, that's kind of where turbo 4-cylinders suffer, but this does not. This keeps pulling at the high end. Like if you're doing 70 miles an hour out on the highway and you peg it, this thing still has plenty to offer. You're going to be flying in this, no questions asked. So drivetrain is great. Now the con could be a slight lack of soul. You know, if you don't know what I'm saying there, then that's okay. What you need to understand is, you know, it's a 4-cylinder turbo. It doesn't sound anything special. I mean, if you put it into the, well, speaking of special, there is a special mode. If you press the R button, you have a couple of different modes to choose from. Drift mode in particular, which I'll talk about in a bit. But there's a special mode known as the Nürburgring mode, and that's a special mode that they designed specifically for this car to tackle the Nürburgring. And that's actually one of my most favorite modes to put this car into. And the exhaust will start to crackle and pop a little bit. Nothing crazy, it's just subtle. The car is never obnoxious, but the engine noise will get louder in that mode. When you put it into the normal mode or the sport mode, it's actually very quiet. So there is that big difference there. But if you want to increase the character of this motor, I would put like an intake on it. I'm not really a huge modifying type guy. Okay, I like my warranties to be intact, but I would just put an intake on it because I would like to hear the kind of blow off noises of the turbo a little bit more, you know, things like that. I wish they would emphasize that more from the factory, but most car companies don't, so it is what it is. That's something you can do on your own. Not a very expensive mod, less than $200 or so. Another con is going to be that drift mode, because let's be honest, that drift mode is not really doing anything, okay? When you put it into that mode, the only thing I really notice with this car is the steering gets a lot more heavier, and that's really about it. It still maintains that great neutral demeanor. It never feels like it becomes a rear-wheel drive car, and there's a reason for that. It's because in the drift mode, all it's doing is, this all-wheel drive system is only capable of sending up to 50% of the power to the rear wheels, and that's just simply not enough for you to provoke this car into a drift or into any type of oversteer nature. But because you have that sport differential, once up to 50% of that power, whatever power is being sent to the rear wheels, 100% of that power can be distributed either to the left rear wheel or the right rear wheel, okay? That's something to note, but again, this car always has that neutral driving demeanor, as I've stated multiple times. Okay, another pro is going to be the fuel economy. For a vehicle that's this quick, this returns great real-world MPGs. I think it's rated to do about 23 in the city and 28 on the highway with the manual. Might be able to get like 30 MPG out on the highway if you get the automatic. But yeah, those are accurate numbers. You will be getting 23 in the city and around high 20s, low 30s out on the highway. In fact, if you drove this car a little bit more mellow, you can actually beat the EPA numbers on this car. So very impressive for a vehicle of this amount of speed and performance. Again, makes it a great daily driver. And that brings me to another point. Daily drivability is really what they focused in on with this car. That's the key thing you have to understand here. You're not really sacrificing much by purchasing this car, and The purchase price is about $45,000, which I'll touch on next, but this car doesn't beat you up. It actually rides decently well in just about every mode. It kind of lets you know what type of road surface you're driving on. Okay, like if there's a sharp bump, you'll hear that bump, but it doesn't really unsettle the vehicle. It never feels uncomfortable at any point, no matter what mode you're in. So that's a great thing. Also, this is a pretty quiet machine. Not a whole lot of wind noise, not a whole lot of tire noise, even with these summer tires. That it comes with summer tires from the factory, and even still, it's not really that noisy in here. It doesn't even utilize double pane glass, but again, it doesn't need to because it's actually respectably quiet. In fact, this vehicle was designed in a wind tunnel. It achieves about a 0.33 coefficient of drag, just so you know. So the daily drivability is great, and that's one of the reasons why this manual transmission, it's a little bit softer, this manual transmission, a little bit looser, longer throws. At first, I thought that might be a con. As I started to drive it more, I realized just how easy it is. The clutch pedal uptake, really predictable. You know exactly where that bite point is. You don't need to get knee surgery after you're done driving this car in the city. Okay, I've done a lot of miles in this car in the city, and it's not an issue for me. Plus, you know exactly what gear you're in. So again, it's so easy, it's effortless. You can literally just shove this manual transmission stick with a pinky if you want to. It's so easy to drive. Now let's move on into the interior, because for a lot of people, this infotainment surprisingly is a con for them. I don't understand that, because the way it's set up, it's literally mimicking a Apple CarPlay setup. That's what it looks like, and everybody loves Apple CarPlay. Not really sure why nobody likes this. I think it's intuitive. That's actually a pro for me, but the con for me with this infotainment is the lag. There's a bit of lag with the infotainment screen. That's about it. It's nothing crazy, just thought I would bring it up. My other real con, though, is with the climate control. It's totally just baked into the screen. It's a little unfortunate. Can be distracting. You do have a voice control command right here. You press that button, you can tell the vehicle to raise and lower the temperature, or to turn on your heated steering wheel or your heated seats, whatever. You do have that, but that's just not a natural thing yet for most people. If you've been driving cars for 20, 30 years, you're used to reaching for knobs and buttons for the climate control, for the recirculation of the air button. You know, that should all be physical in my opinion. So that's kind of a con for me. Otherwise, the screen quality is decent. It looks nice. The digital gauge cluster also looks great, and that's actually very easy to use, easy to customize, legible, no problems. My only gripe with it is it could have been a little bit larger. You know, it is your gauge cluster after all. They could have made that a bit bigger. That's the only thing. Otherwise, I respect the minimalistic design approach, and I love these seats. These seats are definitely a pro to this. They look fantastic, but also very supportive. Lots of lumbar support, comfortable, very non-fatiguing. In fact, everything about it is non-fatiguing because, again, daily drivability is definitely a huge pro with this car. The steering wheel is also another thing to behold for sure. The con, though, is the rear seats. It's not that plentiful, but again, for me, that doesn't matter because who cares about the people in the back? At least you have a four-door vehicle here that can fit adults. Like, I can sit behind myself, but it's certainly no Bentley Mulsanne back there. That's what you need to understand. But you can at least access the rear seats, and it's easy to put a child seat back there and get to that, so no problems there. And the trunk space is respectable, and also you can fold down these seats almost flat, and you have plenty of space that way. Lastly, let's talk about that price, because 45 racks, that's no joke. The reason why I'm okay with it, that was going to be a huge con for me until I started to do some more research. I was like, all right, what did the 2019 Golf R cost? That was about $41,000, $42,000. In fact, with the crazy pandemic prices, a 2019 previous generation Golf R almost costs as much as this brand new Golf R, and that's a vehicle with some mileage, and that's 3 years old at this point. So in fact, the resale value on this is going to be amazing, not just because of the inflated pandemic prices, but because this is going to be desirable. This is a no compromise Golf with everything on it. Okay, sport differential, all-wheel drive, great drivetrain options. Everybody knows this. Okay, this is the no compromise vehicle, and this is going to be sought after, especially in the manual. That's one of the reasons why you're going to want to consider this. Yes, the dual clutch is going to be a bullet of a vehicle, but the manual, the connected experience, that's what makes it special. That's what's going to make this car hold its value so well. And it comes with a 4-year, 50,000-mile warranty. A 2016 Golf R still goes for around $30,000 with 70,000 miles on it. All right, that should give you some idea right there. And with the great fuel economy, it's not really going to be a huge issue owning this for around 4 years, 50,000 miles. And it's even going to offer 2 years, 20,000 miles of free maintenance. Another thing to keep in mind. So Me personally, this is something to put on a short list. I would even consider daily driving this myself. This is that enjoyable. If you found value with this video, consider subscribing. Hopefully you enjoyed that as well. Thanks again for watching. Take care and goodbye.